particular questions?
Only that the page which the kanji was on in the textbook and the stroke order was not listed on the homework. I had to go rummage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It wasn't listed?
No, in the workbook it's listed, but the workbook doesn't show the stroke order or what the kanji mean.
Oh, okay.
So it was in the textbook, but it wasn't listed what
Okay.
page in the textbook.
So I need to list the page numbers so you don't have to.
Yeah, I had to go dig through the textbook to find it.
Okay. Well, because these pages 300 and so forth weren't assigned yet, right? I think they're
Right.
in tonight's homework.
No, I wasn't talking. I was talking about just the stroke order and what.
Okay, yeah,
what
but
they
I
mean.
mean, because this stuff is assigned for the next homework assignment, I guess I kind of forgot that you wouldn't already know where to find this.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing this page for homework, then it's kind of,
Yeah, because the workbook page had to write the.
it
times
wanted you to
things
write the
in kanji. I was
characters.
like, I
Yeah.
wrote these kanji, but I don't know what they mean yet.
Yeah, oh, I see, yeah, the meanings are all right here. They're always the first 2 pages of the kanji section of the chapter. But, yeah, I didn't realize that I hadn't put page numbers in there, so I'll have to see if I can fix that for next time. Okay, so, looking at the numbers, ichi, ni, san are 3 of the easiest kanji you're ever going to learn. Am I right?
Yeah.
So we probably don't have to talk too much about how to write those. Am I right? Okay, any questions about the rest of the numbers? Are there questions about stroke order or proportionality or anything like that on the kanji numbers?
Yeah, I have some questions about the stroke order for a couple of the numbers.
Okay.
For she or
Hi.
yon, how do you write that stroke order?
She.
I
This one. Ni, san, shi, go.
okay, so that
Yeah.
you do the bottom line last.
Yes, you do the bottom line last. Anytime there's stuff inside a box, the general rule of thumb for boxes is always, I'll tell you to you the way my sensei told me a long time ago. This part is you open the door, okay? This part is you invite your friends in. Then you close the door. That's a good way to remember it, because anytime you've got a box and the stuff that's in the box is fully enclosed, it doesn't stick out at all, it's always going to be that order. Okay, so if you think of it as open the door to your house or whatever, you let your friends come in, and then you shut the door, right? You don't shut the door in their faces.
Unless they're from.
Well, I said friends.
Also,
Okay, so that's
also the kanji for 5.
height. So, color coded again. So
The way I do it is
Ni, san, shi.
okay. The way I do it is I write the 3 horizontals, then I write the verticals. That's how I did it.
This is a stroke order that I was always taught. Is that the same as what the textbook teaches? Every once in a while, there's
Yes.
one that's different from, yeah,
4 stroke orders.
yeah. And yes, I always found it sort of ironic that 4 is a 5-stroke character and 5 is a 4-stroke character.
I know. It's really weird.
Yeah, because the first 3 are the same number of strokes as what they mean, right? Kind of like Roman numerals, only on their sides. Okay, so I always found it sort of ironic that starting with 4, they broke that pattern and had the numbers reversed, sort of.
Well, 4 has 4 sides, it's a square, and 5 has 5 lines.
But 5 doesn't have 5 lines, it has 4 lines.
Wait,
This,
so
this counts as a bent line.
that's 1 line?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, some people write it with a very pointy angle, some people write it a little bit more rounded, but it is counted as 1 stroke in traditional dictionaries where you have to know the stroke count to look something up. So it's important to know that, because if you are using a traditional paper dictionary and you're looking up a kanji that you don't recognize, stroke count is an important part of how you look it up. Okay, now obviously if you've got a nice little tablet that plugs into your computer and lets you handwrite the character and look it up that way, that's great. But be aware that some of those programs won't accept it if your stroke order is too far off. They might take it if it's off a little bit. Maybe there's some discrepancies that some people write it this way, some people write it that way, so it might accept that. But if it's too different or too messy, a lot of those handwritten lookup things won't work. So you have to develop at least legible handwriting to use those things. Because I've got it on my iPhone, and I've seen students try to look it up on the same app that I've got, and they write it wrong, and it gives them gibberish, or it doesn't give them anything at all that's usable. So you gotta pay attention to stroke order.
My last two are on the character kanji for 9 and the kanji for time.
Okay.
For 9, it's the long line, then the curve.
It's the swoop first, and then,
Okay,
Yeah,
and then the
gotcha.
character for time. Which do you do first, the box or the tree?
okay, rule of thumb, again, left to right, top to bottom. Okay? So left to right means that if you've got any character that divides into two halves, which toki counts, you can divide it that way into those two pieces, those two halves. So you're always going to do the left half before the right half. And the two pieces on the right side, you can separate and count as two components, and therefore the top component has to be written before the bottom component. Okay? And if you're numbering the whole thing, I'll write it out larger so you can see it. So you're going to have ichi, ni, san, shi, go, yoku, shi, hachi, kyu, ju, like that.
Alright. It says, oh, yeah, here it is.
Yeah.
10 strokes.
I have a question about the particles.
Yeah.
It shows stroke order for like the main ones, but when there's double, it doesn't.
You mean radicals?
Radicals. Yeah. What did I say?
Yeah, you said
radicals. I meant radicals.
What do you mean by double?
I have like these.
Okay,
It doesn't show the stroke order for those, even when they're like very different.
does it show the stroke order?
Not for the ones like some of those do, but there was some homework where it did not.
Yeah.
Or if it did, it was very tough.
Well, like this one, they taught you the two components of it first, right?
Right.
And so it follows the same stroke orders, just in order, top to bottom. Okay, so since it's this followed by this, the stroke order stays the same for each component, you just stack them.
I also like
And like I said, top to bottom is one of the rules of thumb, so you're gonna do the top piece first before you do the bottom piece.
I figured that. I was just wondering why there are different multiple ones for like the same.
Oh, the different versions of the same thing? Okay, good question, yes. Okay, so a few of the ones that have multiple forms include heat and mizu.
There's lines for all of them.
Mizu is that one. Let's see, hito is that one. Were there any others that had?
Oh, there's a few. Like
Yeah.
on tonight's, there's like 3 on some of them.
I don't have a copy of that with me, so can I borrow?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
You good?
Okay.
Yeah, like this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so this one,
I think that's tonight's homework.
yeah, okay, this one has 3 different versions, and there's a very important reason why. Okay, oh, and clothing, that versus that, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, so, and some of these are special case. I'll circle the special case ones. Because some of them are not actually relevant for you guys. The circled ones are not relevant for you guys.
Should we still write them?
I'd rather you actually practice the full form
Okay,
extra instead
okay.
on the ones that are irrelevant to you guys. Versus, okay, I think, is that it? Oh, yeah, keen.
I think they're like those, I think those 4 pages are all of tonight's.
Okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and show you some of these others as well anyway. Okay.
Because those that I handed you are the rest of the packet that you had
Right,
uploaded, and then.
yeah, and some of these are irrelevant and some of them are very relevant. Some of these that I'm circling, they're only relevant if you decide to go on and study Chinese too. Okay, so here, let me hand you those. Okay, so the ones that are relevant to you guys are versions of the character when it stands alone as its own character versus versions of the character where there's going to be something else here and it's a component version of itself instead of a full form. Okay, so this when it's by itself means shito or jin, like nihonjin. Okay, this when it's like this is some part of another character that very often relates in some way to people. Therefore, it's got the person radical. That's what a radical really is. It's a component of a larger character that imparts some kind of meaning to the character. So when you see a character that has a radical you recognize, that right there is a clue to something about its meaning, usually, and a way to help yourself memorize it. Also, you can have some characters like Ji that are composed of 3 different components that you might all know the meanings of. And the whole combination gives you the meaning. There are several different categories of kanji. Some are 1/2 a radical with some meaning, and 1/2 a component that relates to pronunciation in some way, or at least it did. It may not be accurate or useful anymore because the language has changed and diverged from Chinese so much. But every once in a while you get lucky and there's one where the sound component still works. Okay, a good example of that is, you guys know this character now, right? Okay.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. It's on
Same pronunciation.
Yeah,
Go, go. This one means language, as in Nihongo. Okay? And the component here is your meaning component. It means to speak, to say, iimasu. Okay? And so you combine a radical that means to speak with a sound component that means go. And you get a word relating to speaking that's pronounced go. And that combination tells you, oh yeah, it's got to be the go that's in Nihongo, that means language, right? So that's an example of one where it actually still works, it helps, okay? Unfortunately, that's a minority of kanji these days because so many of them, the pronunciations have diverged from whatever the homonym originally was. okay? Sometimes they're still sort of similar, so you can still make a connection mentally. Some of them are so far off that it's like, really? But at least some of them still work. Okay, so that's what these radicals are doing. So this means fire. When you see a kanji that has this underneath, it's very often something related to fire, cooking, things like that, heat. You know, something that's hot, something that's, you know, words like yaku, to roast, things like that, boiling, things like that often have that radical to them.
Someone,
Make sense?
similar to the character for rain.
Yeah.
The second part has like an opening under it. You could use it for like
Yeah,
yuki
exactly.
or den.
So, exactly, yuki,
It has
the
like
snow. The rain radical on top has to do with a lot of weather conditions that might be related to rain. So clouds and snow and thunder, yeah, coming out of, yeah, there are a few of them like that that have the rain radical, okay? So that's another example of that. Taberu is the same. This is to eat, taberu. The radical for taberu is also 1/2 of nomu, to drink. It's also 1/2 of the han in gohan, rice, meal. Okay, so that's one that is going to turn up a lot. The one that I circled, the reason I circled it is this is the simplified version of the radical. So if you're trying to read mainland Chinese, this is useful and important to know. If you're not trying to read Chinese, you don't need this at all, because Japanese doesn't use it.
So do you not want us to?
Yeah,
do the
don't
ones that
even
you
bother
circled?
with the radicals that are simplified.
Okay.
Okay?
ignore the simples.
And ignore the simplified ones. So that's why I circled them up here, so you can just put a little X through those or something in your own copy.
Ignore the ones with the red circles, but think about the ones with the green circles.
All the rest of the green one, all the rest of them are important, just the red circled ones you don't need,
Okay.
okay? Same thing with, like, this is horse. You might not think you're gonna need horse in daily life, but it's also a component. When it's written narrower, it's a component, for example, of eki, train station. Everybody in Japan needs that word.
So is it like transportation?
It's often related to transportation things. It also has other words, like, I think the word for riding a bicycle, and I know it is in Mandarin, I can't think now in Japanese what the kanji looks like, but this uma, horse, gets used as components to a variety of things that have to do with transportation sometimes something to do with horses. I think it's in baka, the insult. I'm not sure why calling somebody something to do with horse is an insult, but it's part of the kanji, it's not the whole kanji. Yeah. Horses are actually pretty intelligent animals, so but it's not the whole kanji. I believe it's a component of the kanji, so it may have just been a homophone for something else. This one means a doorway or a gate. And again, the circled one is just, it looks like saloon doors, right?
That's what I was trying to think of. I was like,
Yeah.
these things that saloon
Yeah.
doors.
And this one again is simplified Chinese, don't worry about it.
About that,
Yeah.
the Sakura, the old people
Yeah.
used to use it.
Oh,
My-
this
my
one?
grand-
Yeah. Oh, okay,
So
interesting.
my grandma or
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
also like the last grandma, also like
Okay, yeah.
I looked up the kanji for bicycle.
Okay, yeah, see, yeah, jitensha, yeah. But I think there's a verb that means to ride something that I think may have uma in it, I forget for sure. But anyway, this one is gold, and again, this one that's sort of slanted and squished is a side piece of something. This one, by the way, very often has something in the middle, or it could have something over here, like that. This one's usually going to have something in the middle. This one can have something on one side or the other, sometimes even on top. Okay.
It says
This
here.
one means ashi, foot. Sometimes there's a piece here, sometimes there's a piece here. Okay. Shell, cowrie shell, very common component of a zillion characters, many of them having to do with commerce and trade, because if you go way back to prehistoric times, shells were a form of currency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so a lot of buying and selling type terminology, the kanji have these components. And again, that's the simplified, don't worry about it.
Is that why like
Same
a lot
for
of
imas.
words? Is that why like a lot of words they kind of sound like certain other words in other languages and they mean the same thing?
Could be.
The way you have the smaller foot written is different from how it is on English.
How did they write it? Oh, they just separated these two lines. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is more of a handwritten version of that,
Oh, okay.
that's all.
Okay.
Yeah,
I guess
that's just me being a little sloppy, writing too fast. Okay, here again, these are two different versions, both of which can take a piece here. Some kanji actually have this like fuller form on the side, and some have this form on the side. This one again is simplified, don't worry about it. Okay, same thing here. This is a kanji that's more of a full form. It's a word that means clothing, and it's actually evolved from a picture of the kind of shirt, let's see if I can draw it all, that has that kind of a neckline, like a kimono top. Okay, that's kind of what that evolved from. Okay, and this again is a component piece that usually has something next to it like that. Okay, water, fire, person, and they all, like I said, have
That's
those
the point.
component forms.
What's that?
I'm just wrong, like, you don't forget the point, because,
Oh, on
Clothing?
clothing?
Clothing, yeah.
What did I forget? Let me see it again.
Yeah, if you like, yeah. I mean, that this point is very important.
I'm not sure what I left out.
Try rewriting the same stroke
No,
order.
no, I mean,
Teach, ni, san, shi, so, roku,
I don't
right?
know, light one,
これ、1、2、3、4、5。
yeah, it's correct, but if you forget the point, the light one,
The top?
no, left side, oh, okay, I like it.
Is it different in Japanese than English?
Some of these have very like minuscule differences sometimes, and I
Just one,
forget.
we have also this.
Right, oh yeah.
So if you forgot this
Oh,
point,
I see, there are those two versions, yeah, the
Yeah.
one that looks like katakana net, and the one that has one extra line. Yeah,
So they're both.
so, yeah, I think they both exist in Japanese. I think Chinese doesn't count this one as being the same. I think in Mandarin, they actually count this as two separate things. But in Japanese, I think they may be more interchangeable almost. Right,
I'm looking through for the kanji symbols, and I'm coming to like for the week, for like the days of the week, and
yeah, that's next chapter.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see it now.
Yeah.
I'll ask my question then.
Okay.
We have a kanji quiz Thursday, yes?
Yes,
Is it just on the numbers and the,
yeah, it's just lesson 3 kanji.
okay, it's just the numbers and the thousands and times?
Yeah,
Numbers,
just-
the uncircled.
Numbers through sen and mon, and then time.
Page
Okay.
298 and 299.
Yeah, and not just like write the number for 1,000, but more practical application stuff. So, a price like 2,500 yen or whatever, and to be able to write that in kanji. So that's the other thing we probably need to talk about, is how to deal with hyaku, sen, and man, because
Yeah, that
it's
was
different from English, if you hadn't already noticed. Hi.
Can you explain how you write 100,000? How you
Yes.
say it? Because I know they do like 10 times.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I want to talk about next.
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
like 100.
Yeah, because Chanel and I asked Satoshi how you would write that.
I had to Google
Yeah.
it.
You have to
It's actually in
get
the
used
book.
to
I
it.
had to Google it.
It's,
Where is
Yeah,
it?
it's listed on the
it's
page.
confusing. So let's talk about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's listed on the page under 10,000. It says 1 million
What?
under
Okay.
the examples on the
So,
Whoa.
so the first thing I like to do is write the place value. You remember place value from second grade or so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where, okay, so the first place is your ones column, right? So we call that ichi. The next place is ju, right? The next place value is
Hyaku.
hyaku, right? The next one after that is
Sen.
sen, and then in Japanese, the next one after that is
Man.
okay? Okay, so now let's put English digits to that. Okay, let's say we've got okay, where would we put the comma normally in English?
After the second.
After the 8, right?
Yeah.
Some Japanese people I've seen actually put the comma here
Eh?
instead, because of where you're going to make your shift. Okay, because look at this. You're going to say it as human, hassen. Notice that when you've got a hachi, the chi changes to the small 2 sometimes. So instead of hachi-sen, most people say hassen. Okay? So 98,765, right? So far so good? Okay, so if you were translating that, you would say 98,000, but you can't do 98,000. Doesn't work. Okay? Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, and then as you move more, if you go higher with your numbers, let's say you put a 4 here, this place value, you're going to come back, pretend like the man is like an equivalent of an ichi, because that's where you start over. So therefore, this takes a ju. Let's say you put another number here, this is going to take a hyaku. Let's say you put another number here, this is going to take a sen. Here, we're not going to worry about because that's a whole new kanji and we're not learning it. Okay? Okay? Besides, unless you're buying a house in Japan, you're not going to need to go that high.
Whoa.
Okay? So, this is going to be 2,349
Human.
Okay? Human, right? And then 8,765.
Wow.
Do you see how it works?
Yeah.
Okay? And do you see how by putting your place value numbers under the digits in English, you can avoid confusion? Do you see what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you've got zeros in a lot of those places, you don't have to say all of this. So let's say you're dealing with this number. You can do ichi, ju, hyaku, sen, man, just to keep yourself from getting confused. But then when you're reading it, you're just going to say kyuman. That's all you need. Just like in English, if it's 90,000, you don't have to say 90,000, 0000, right?
Yeah.
You just say 90,000, right? But in Japanese, you can't say kyuju sen. There's no such thing as kyuju sen, right? It's kyuman. To the point where when I was a student in Japan, and I had a lot of friends who were also learning Japanese, who were from other countries, when we were talking about how much we paid for stuff in English, we would leave the prices in Japanese because it was just too much of a hassle to translate that part back. So if I paid goman-en for something, and somebody was asking, hey, how much did you pay for that thing? I would say goman-en, or just goman, because we were speaking English. But,
50,000, wow.
yeah,
So
hi,
if you say 900,000, is
uh-huh.
that,
So 900,000 is one more here, right?
So that'd be
So that would be
Q,
Kyujuman,
Qjuma.
okay? So because this man is your breaking point where you restart the count, so to speak, you have to put it in there. So even if you're doing like that number, which you can
20 million.
that's 20 million, right? If you're doing 20 million,
That's
you
water
would
you're
say ni sen man, okay? You can skip all of these because they're zeros, right? But each one of these is in the man part of the sequence, so you have to at least have the man in there. Does that make sense? Just like if you're in English, if you're in the 100,000s, if you say 100,000, you have to say the 100 and the 1,000, right? You can't just say the 100 part because that's way over here. You can't just say the 1,000 part because that would be here. So you have to say the 100,000, right? In Japanese, the same thing is true of anything that goes past man. You have to keep the man in there. If you've got, this number, this would be juman, right? If you've got a number here also, this would be like sanbyaku juman, right? If you change this to a 0, then it's sanbyaku man. Does that make sense? Okay. So, yeah, dealing with math in a foreign language is probably one of the hardest things about a foreign language for anybody, because it's math. If you don't like math to begin with, and then you're trying to deal with it in another language, that's like double headache, right? So,
I already have a double headache.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. 英語でも難しいでしょ。
Translating.
Yeah. Yeah, translating between the two is annoying because you're off by one place value here, right, in terms of how you would translate, and then the further along you get, the more ずれてる。英語で、なんていうのかな。
is there,
It's off.
is there a trick where you can, like, multiply, like 2,000 times 20,000 to be able to remember it's Nisan Niman?
I don't know. I'm not that advanced with math to begin with, but for me, this is the one trick that always works. This never fails if you do it right, because it doesn't matter how big the number is. If you do this underneath, then you can just pronounce this in the Japanese way and then add whatever you need to. And just know that you have to keep pronouncing the man if it's there. But then the rest of it, if it's a 0, you don't have to pronounce it. And it's important to practice weird numbers too, where you like take out just some of these and put zeros in. And practice saying, like, Nisen 49万 765. You see how if there was a 0 there, I skipped saying that part.
So much math, I'm going cross-eyed.
Yeah.
People I've played games with online have translated, I always wondered why like 5 million would be translated to like 500K thousand.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I never understood why they didn't just say 5 million instead of 500K thousand.
That kind of makes sense now, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I was just wondering if, is that the same? Because usually they're Chinese people and they're translating from Chinese to English. Is it the
Yes.
same in Chinese?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole number system of Japanese was borrowed from Chinese. Chinese, Japanese, and Korean all do their higher numbers the same way, even to using the same kanji for them. Although Mandarin, there's a traditional form of this character that's still used in Taiwan and to some degree in Hong Kong, but the rest of the Chinese-speaking world uses this kanji now. And Koreans still, I think, use the other version rather than this one. But yeah, they use the same kanji, numbers 1 through 10 as well. And even the pronunciations in Japanese and Korean are somewhat derived from the ancient Chinese pronunciations of the numbers, including even some of the pronunciations of some of the higher ones, like sen is qian in Mandarin, and man is 1. That's not that far off, right?
Huh? Whoa. If you were trying to speak Chinese with Japanese numbers, it would be like,
Oh, yeah. Switching back and forth between the two when you're dealing with numbers is the worst.
it's like roller coaster, like going up and down. It's like
Yeah.
it's hurting.
When I first got back from Japan and I was taking a Chinese course, the one thing that I always got stuck on when I had to read aloud in my class was the numbers. I would get tongue-tied because my first instinct was to read the numbers out loud in Japanese when they were in kanji. And it was a Chinese class, so I was supposed to say them in Mandarin.
I have Japanese currency, so can I show them?
Sorry?
I have Japanese currency.
Oh, yeah.
You have
I
yen?
want to see some,
Cool.
and with, those all.
Too much.
Alright, this is a Japanese currency. Man.
Ah, 1万円. Right.
Watermark.
Other countries' money is always so much prettier than American.
So,
Right. So those
So
are the
colorful.
main bills that everybody deals with in Japan.
Hold on to the light and see the watermarks.
Yeah. Everything smaller than senin is usually a coin in Japan. So, which makes for a very heavy purse sometimes, or wallet, or pocket,
Canada's
wherever you
money
keep
is
your
so cheap.
change. Because gohyaku-en is approximately
if you
$5.
don't know that, like a Japan light.
So you can imagine you're carrying around a lot of change sometimes. If gohyaku-en is a coin,
also,
hyaku-en is a coin. Yeah.
And then every vending machine gives you like 10 million 10 cent
Yeah.
coins.
Yeah.
I know that most, like, outside Tokyo, they might not know Romaji, but do they at least know the
Oh, this
Romaji?
is 5 yen.
Like numbers.
The English numbers, yes. Yeah, the digits get used a lot in Japan.
important.
And, yeah, Romaji gets used for certain specific
I've seen the coins.
purposes.
I have.
Like, most of the major cities, the train stations
Oh.
have the Romaji
I saw
name of
this
the
trick on
station
the
somewhere.
corner.
But it might only be on like the one main sign in the center of the platform. So if you're
I
on
saw
the
this
train
trick on
and you're
Conan.
looking for that one sign because you don't
If you use
read
like that coin,
kana or kanji that
the
well,
50 yen,
you need to make sure you're kind of in the middle of the train.
yeah, the
So,
50 yen coin.
because they're very accurate,
You go through the hole in it,
they
it
park the
makes it
train
sound like a firework.
at each platform.
Yeah.
So if you get on under the main sign that
Ours
has
is
Romaji
so
on it,
ugly.
then when you're ready to get off, you'll be right under that sign too. But of course, a lot of the major cities also now have digital displays on the train
One dot.
that tell you the name of the stop coming
Well,
up. And in Tokyo at least, some of them
I'm just
are
complaining because those are
multilingual,
prettier.
where they run through it
Those are
in
much prettier.
Japanese, Chinese, Korean, English, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, English. You know, they rotate through and will actually tell you the upcoming stop is
Yeah.
Shinjuku, and in this nice female British accent, you know.
Wow,
So
that
you think it'd be
is,
fairly safe
my mind is going.
to know your numbers almost anywhere in Japan?
What is that?
Don't call them Roman numerals though, because they're not Roman numerals. These are
Oh, my
the
bad.
digits,
I get
English
that.
digits. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
So this is
But
$5
yeah,
yen.
the digits work. Yes, they're even on the currency. I mean, look at the currency. The numbers are on there.
So.
Yeah,
outside
those are
Tokyo,
fine.
You're fine?
But if, let's say you're craving some really traditional home-style Japanese cuisine.
Purple's not even my
You go
favorite
into
color.
a traditional little hole-in-the-wall, tiny little Japanese restaurant that only serves udon.
What if this
There's
becomes like a
a very good chance that their menu is gonna be strips of paper on the wall that say the name of the dish and the price,
A penny per
only
dish.
in kanji,
$dollar-ish.
kanji and hiragana,
It's not actually.
without any digits anywhere.
Almost a
That's
penny
very
per dish.
possible in some of the really
Almost.
traditional little restaurants that are, little mom and pop shops that are the size of this room, you know.
Penny to a guess.
So try not to end up there.
So, but learn to recognize the kanji and then you'll be fine. And very often, the price will be something along the lines of, like if it's sen gokyaku, for example, it might say,
1 is 10%. $1 is
Like that.
102.
So it's about.
if the price is
about
1,500 yen,
Basically, you just
it might actually be written this way, because they use a circle in place of the traditional
exact
kanji for
price.
0 most of the time these days. The traditional kanji for 0 is a pain in the neck to write, and most Japanese people just don't bother anymore.
What does it look like?
It looks like
From Japan, you mean which part?
that.
Maybe you don't know. You
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know
I see why
what
it is.
Kobe?
You can see why a lot of people don't bother with it
You know,
anymore.
is it,
Near Kobe.
Even in China, they mostly don't bother with it
I've heard
anymore.
of
They
it.
mostly write the
is it
big
down
circle.
here? Okay.
So 1 penny.
I've been doing this Japanese too long.
He's telling us where he's
I
from.
can't
Oh,
try to picture Roman numerals. Now
Kobe.
I don't know what they look like.
Now
Now I don't even know what Roman numerals look like.
Nobody knows.
Whatever I try
Oh,
to
Kobe, heard of it. Kobe beef is one of the things they're famous for.
Yeah.
Kobe.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Yes,
the-
that's
Kobe
what I
was
got.
one of the
Yeah.
port cities that
I
was
would've
still
never guessed.
open to the Dutch after Tokugawa kicked all the other gaijin out. And so because it was open to the Dutch and basically nobody else,
Oh, wow, wow.
half of the architecture in
Like
Kobe
Asian language.
looks like a little European Dutch village or something.
Wow.
There's a lot of in
No,
the
no, no,
touristy
no,
town.
not Kobe, I think. This is Nagasaki.
If they use,
Nagasaki.
It's not in Kobe too?
What
So I
is
could
that
have sworn
called? What do we
in
call
the
it?
tourist section.
Kobe beef. What?
The touristy area, the old town area. There's a touristy section of
But
Kobe
yeah,
that has,
Kosan.
yeah. And
yeah,
yeah,
not the whole city. I mean, there's a whole modern
we're
part
trying to
of
trend
Kobe
things
that's
like
totally
that,
modern
and
Japanese.
kind of thing here.
But my friend and I went sightseeing, and we went to the little old town part where it's all
So it would be like our downtown Melbourne, downtown Kokomo.
yeah, it's a
Area.
yeah. It's almost more like.
Which made me want
Have
to
you ever
go
been to
archaeology.
St. Augustine?
Yes.
It's like the little old town part of St. Augustine with the old buildings. Yeah, the cobblestones and the old little schoolhouse, it's like that for Kobe.
It's like a
Like, I went there for my
historical.
20th birthday.
Yeah,
St.
yeah.
Augustine.
St. Augustine's good.
Yeah,
I went as a
And
field
just
trip.
like-
definitely.
Yeah,
Honestly, like, you know what?
Now they can see a treasure hunters.
Yeah, so anyway, but Kobe is, yeah, Kobe is that kind of a town where there's that touristy section that has the old village
Yeah,
stuff,
I have
you can walk
improved
and
my,
see
There would be
stuff,
some
and
nuances there.
they're
mic
actually
growing,
like
and
little
it's a little bit better
windmills
now.
because it was Dutch
Nowhere near out where I want it to be, but it's a little bit hard
They had
because
like
I
a
do have
little
the 5-year-old
concession.
razor
There's like
deadlighter,
a
and it's
Dutch
really,
portion of
you know,
town.
even if it's razor,
They
it's still
didn't
gonna,
want
you know,
Dutch
after a
people
while, it's
raising
not gonna work quite as well as it
want
once
that much
did,
barrier
so.
blood. So they had like
Yeah.
just a little section carved out and told the Dutch
Doom
people, okay,
of
when you're
old
in port, this is
resources.
the part that's for you.
But
You're
yeah,
not
I kind of
allowed
like
out
in
here.
general, language. What? How it
So,
goes. You just go
so yeah,
straight.
Kobe is neat.
You just went straight
Um,
deep.
Kobe
Okay.
is really expensive.
The whole universe is that what you're talking about?
And beef is really expensive, Kobe beef is
Because
worse.
now you have newfound appreciation.
Yeah.
You tried so hard
And it's
that last
very
game we
marbled.
played, I think, like where you were Trendemere.
Yeah.
Oh, you tried so hard and got so
Yeah.
far.
If you like
Yeah,
marbled
didn't even matter.
meat and
So
you like
all of us
a
were just
lot of
feeding.
fat
I'm also
content
gonna
in
blame
beef,
that
then
on
if you like the meat,
basically by the end I was able
I don't know
to
how
shoot
it
shots.
is.
And basically
Yeah.
anyone
Yeah.
that
So
I
it's-
know.
yeah.
And
But like if you prefer
I got really laggy
lean
with this
beef,
because
then
my sister
don't
was
waste
you
your
know, so I would like spin into a fight and not see anything. I'm just hoping that I'm auto attacking the caveman instead of the 10 million health Shen or whoever it was. I don't
I
even know.
noticed, and he's like,
it did look like you were just getting lagged out like halfway through fights because you were like standing around like,
Why am I not two-shotting that guy?
There's too much fat, pop it up on the side,
Can't move.
you know, like.
They're also fed by that point, like they're also evenly fed, so by that point where I was just getting two-shot by everyone, so I couldn't do anything. And Caitlyn versus Vayne is already awful, especially if your support isn't doing shit, which he really wasn't, so. I don't know. And on top of like me lagging and playing badly, you know, it was just a failure, but
In general,
it
any
happens.
mistake in
I think we
Japan,
did get one of
you're gonna
their
pay a
Indian
Texas-sized
stuff.
Yeah,
price
yeah.
for
You
a
got there
miniature
in
steak.
Top flavor.
Wow, a Texas
Yeah.
price for a mini steak.
Yeah.
That's like playing, wow, it's like
Yeah,
the
it's like
first.
going to high
I think
class.
I really want to play Darius.
Yeah.
Darius. Just downright Darius.
So they, for like the context for the days of the week,
Yeah.
sun,
Donkey,
moon,
talking
fire,
about Donkey's
water,
video.
Yeah, he
forest,
started
cold,
that
and soil.
nonsense.
Yeah.
Why
I would laugh so hard
like
if they
that?
did.
It's just days.
Did you ever see his
That's
one
what they came up with,
played Rust?
the 7-day
Yeah.
videos of
Oh, you saw it?
concept. So they adopted
Let me
it when
tell
they
you the
adopted
story
it
of
from
how
House.
people,
So they had
they
to
were
make
just like
up
lagging
the
around and they're naked and like hitting each other with rocks. It was just the most ridiculous thing I've ever
I mean,
seen.
Nichiobi and Getsuyobi are translations.
Oh man, I really particularly for some reason like these prop hunt videos for Team Fortress 2.
Tuesday is fire.
Prop hunt is the most
So,
hilarious game
yeah,
mode
Fire
I've
Day,
ever
Water
seen in any
Day,
game.
Wood Day.
Like normally you're supposed to play like Team Fortress, you're supposed to play like
Coyote,
your various roles, you know,
coyote.
like,
Yeah.
it's literally just like
Yeah,
like you're like a traffic cone in like a bush or some shit. You're just floating around. You're floating around the map, like, and they're trying to catch you and like shoot you. And it just looks so silly because your character model is actually like a bush or whatever, and you're just like flying around. And what you're supposed to do is like you're supposed to be hide and seek and like find something that looks similar to you and like settle down next to it and just be absolutely still. And they can't tell if you're real or not. They just go around like using their limited ammo to check to see if you're like hiding, and then if you fail to hide and start hitting you with something, you have to basically just run. And it looks so silly when you're like floating around the map as like I don't know, like a door or something. It just looks so silly, and it's the most hilarious thing. And Donkey, of course, makes it like even better.
Yeah.
So he's like, you get.
Because of the Chinese.
I'm not there. Yeah.
Yeah, that I know. Yeah, those I know. Since
Absolutely
Nichiobi,
amazing,
Getsuyobi,
yeah.
those I know.
I liked
Tom,
his video that he did for
Kindo, I'm not
Draven.
really sure why.
It was like
those.
when he was talking to himself and yelling at himself in the video.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
like,
Oh yeah,
he was like,
Mars.
he was playing himself and he was also playing a character named Bob. And that was when he brought up the,
Oh, V, okay.
that was when he
Mercury,
brought up
C,
that.
and Mars is okay. And Venus is Moxie.
Oh, I can't remember the joke that he made.
Mercury,
Like Dyro, yeah, like he worked out with Dyro, remember like that one? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like,
named after the planets.
I don't know.
Oh, so that's why
I'll play a different video.
Saturday
Either
is
way, like,
Saturn.
some of his
Saturn.
videos are
That
just
makes
ridiculous
sense.
beyond measure.
Yeah.
For Saturn.
I'm always so excited when I see that there's a new one out.
Okay, I did not know that.
I just don't,
Okay.
I don't ever know what to expect.
Wait,
like,
If they don't make any sense,
Why
there's no way to
Friday
guess. You might guess that there's going to be a spinning Wukong at one point. That might be your good guess, but outside of
Venus,
that, I don't
okay,
know.
okay, Venus.
Oh, Venus.
He just
Okay.
somehow makes
Guys, I just
videos.
learned something important and new that I never knew before. The days of the week, other than Sunday and Moon Day, Sunday, Monday, gets Nichiobi, Getsuyobi. The others are all named after planets in our solar system. Apparently, Suyobi is named after, do you say Suisei?
Suisei, yeah.
Suisei
Neptune?
is Mercury, is that right?
I think so. Like
Yeah.
Mercury,
And then Kinsei is Venus,
yeah.
the gold, and Kase is Mars, the fire planet,
Yeah.
and then Mokusei is that Jupiter?
Jupiter, yeah.
Okay, and then Dosei is Saturn.
I would have thought Suisei would be like after Neptune, because Sui is related to water. Neptune is giant blue ball.
Yeah. I don't know.
And Jupiter isn't anything green or anything forest relating when you think about the coloring.
I
Would
don't
it be
know.
the order of planets?
Maybe, well, but they're not really in order either, so I don't know. I can't explain it. But at least we know more now than we did before, because I never knew why they picked those particular, yeah. They don't use them. Yeah, Chinese uses different words for the days of the week, they don't use this, yeah.
No one likes
No, they actually just number
it. Yeah,
them.
no one likes it.
Yeah, it's 1 through 6, and then Sunday uses the 10 from tempura.
Areas that
Sora.
are color coded and
Weird.
Yeah,
the ones for their colors.
so, okay, so questions about kanji. Does everybody feel like they understand how to deal with big numbers?
Yeah.
Okay, got the concept? Does everybody understand G? I think we talked about G last time, that it's sun, soil, and inch. Oh, okay, let's go over that real quick before we run out of time, guys. Okay.
Always sensei.
We have 5 minutes.
皆さん聞いてください. Okay. Looking at your components, remember the radicals, okay? What's this piece by itself mean? Nichi, sun, right? What's
Sun.
this piece by itself?
Soil.
Soil, do, from doyobi, right? What's this piece mean by itself? Inch.
Inch.
Inch, as in short measure of length, okay?
So
So
measurement.
you put it together, okay, you've got your sun up in the sky, right? You've got a stick in the earth,
Oh, I get
and
it.
you've got measurements on the soil.
It's a sundial.
Sundial, exactly. Okay, so that's how you can remember G, Toki. It's literally telling you it's a sundial with the 3 characters that are involved. Hi.
Is it the key, okay, the K part, the kanji?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, the to part of Tokei, it's the G in times like Kujihan, and it's also Toki, as in Tokidoki, sometimes. Okay, so, and Toki by itself means time. When you're not doubling it, Toki by itself is time.
Oh,
Okay.
I was saying okay,
Yeah, well, Tokei, it's part of that also.
that's a different, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
Tokei is a different word.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wasn't that watch in the book?
Yeah.
Watch, yeah, wristwatch. But it makes sense, doesn't it, that this kanji would also be part of the word for watch or clock? Because Tokei can be a wall clock as much as a wristwatch. Yeah.
Sensei.
Hi.
I'm looking at kanji further on, and I'm noticing. And remember how I told you that the character 100 and
Yeah.
character white look alike? They're just missing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and, yeah, that's one of the ones that's gonna get taught later, okay? So, the only other kanji we didn't talk about yet is N. Did anybody notice something about the pronunciation that might be a surprise?
N, not yen.
Exactly, and does everyone know why? Now that we've learned our hiragana and katakana,
They don't have a ye sound.
where's the ye? There isn't one anymore, right?
We just call it
There's a
ye.
space for it, right? Ya, I, you, e, yo, right? The ye just doesn't exist in modern Japanese.
It did like centuries ago, but
Yeah, presumably a long time ago, people actually pronounced it that way, but nobody does anymore. And so it's left over in a couple of spellings. So you've got this fact that in English we still call it yen, even though in Japanese they write en, if they're gonna write it in hiragana, okay? The only other place I've seen it is the historic name for Tokyo is Edo, okay? And in English, I have occasionally seen it spelled as Yedo. Because presumably it used to be pronounced that way 500 years ago or so. It's not anymore, okay? It's not even called that anymore, now it's Tokyo. But if you could take a time machine back and listen to how Japanese was pronounced 1,000 years ago, it was very different sounding. And the main way we know this is because of pre-World War II spellings of words that are so totally different from their modern pronunciations and modern spellings, because those modern spellings were actually not instituted until after World War II. Before that, and you can still see it, if you read something that was written by an author who started writing before World War II, some of them are so old school that they will actually still
Old school.
have their stuff printed with some of the archaic usages, even today. I've read some where some of the old kanji that are no longer in common usage were there, things like that. And if you read something that was actually published before World War II, it's going to have those old spellings as well as the old kanji. And so that then you run into things like that for kyo today.
I think we call it yen because like the stock exchange currency logo looks like the Y, and we just.
Well, that came next. This came first. Because the English pronunciation of Japanese currency as being yen predates the stock exchange by a couple hundred years probably.
Wow. Okay then.
Because, I mean, this is what Europeans thought they heard when they first got to Japan and found out what the currency was called. Okay, so this, I think, comes a lot later.
Alright. I have a question about another kanji, but I'll ask that next class.
Yeah, I've seen that one a lot more than the,
Yeah.
Well, this
yeah.
is equivalent to that for dollars.
Oh, okay.
If that's the dollar sign, that's the yen sign. This is equivalent to writing out dollars. Okay?
That makes sense.
That, the same thing for the numbers. Writing out the kanji numbers is the equivalent of spelling out the words for those numbers. So in formal documents, you'll usually find the kanji numbers. In more casual contexts, you'll often see even things like dates written with the digits and then the suffix that means year. The digits, the suffix that means month. The
I've
digits
almost
and the
always
suffix
seen
that
it.
means date. You know,
I always see the digits with the, like,
with the month, year, and date. Yeah.
In writing, and
Type.
which one are we more likely to use, the dollar sign symbol?
It depends, and their usage is also, if you're writing, let's say you're writing this
oh, digits would be used with the.
Kyujuman with digits, you're probably gonna do it that way,
Okay.
okay? But let's say you're writing Kyujuman like that, you're more likely to write N on the end, okay? It's just like if you're writing $500 on a check and you were writing it out with words, you would spell out dollars, right? But when you're writing it in the little box, you put the symbol for dollars and then the digits,
Okay.
right? So it's the same basic concept. Yeah, just think of this as the word spelled out versus the symbol.
Okay.
Yeah, and the locations are equivalent. So, first kanji quiz, Thursday.
Just numbers, right?
I don't even remember what's on the kanji quiz.
Sensei, when we have time on Thursday, can I ask you about a character? A kanji?
Okay.
Right, I got it at, a store called Office Depot. They actually, it's actually,
It's actually still the sentence format, but the
I actually thought it
things
was
that
like
need
this
to be
was one
filled
of
into
the
the sentence are gonna be number phrases. So it's gonna be, some of it's gonna be time, some of it's gonna be prices, you know, different, maybe age,
Okay.
maybe a phone number, okay? Also notice in phone numbers and things like street addresses, they enunciate each digit separately. They don't normally say like
it's the best. way to say
QGB
it.
or 92 in a,
It's a
yeah, they would say 92 in a phone number or a house number or anything like that.
It would be like, you pronounce each digit like we do for a phone number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some people will say, you know, like my house number is 1945 instead of 1945, right? But in Japanese, normally they would do ichikyu.
Oh, is it?
That would be quicker
Yeah.
after all.
If you-
Yeah,
Whatever.
because it's so long-winded when you put the sen and everything in there.
But in English, it's
Yeah.
sort of the same.
Yeah, it's kind of
I know something does
either or, and when we write the digits out, you know, it's kind of the same.
Does a lot of ink do that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Huh. I've seen that done, but I've never done it with
nani.
the ink disappearing when you put heat next to it, fire.
Oh, okay,
It's an erasable pen I got, and the ink doesn't disappear with the fire.
huh,
Right. Yeah.
okay,
For a second I thought it was a pyromania.
okay,
Science experiment, we're all testing.
okay, okay, so any questions about anything?
I think we're good. John has a tip.
Are you coming Thursday? Don't know. Well, it was nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.